For all who care to join me, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are we okay with roll call attendance? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to read our board norms. Debate, commentary, and discussion are healthy and open. Listening and speaking are equally important, and both should be done with respect and consideration. Focus is on students and our schools, not politics. Assume best intentions in all discussions. And if I could please have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Could I have a motion to add this addendum dated February 11th to the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Could I please have a motion to pass the consent, to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So, do we have anyone for public input?
We do. We have, this gentleman told me that he's not speaking. So the first one is Chris Selinsky.
Okay.
Siliski.
Siliski.
Yeah, Siliski, yeah.
Mr. Siliski?
Right here.
Please.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Chris Seliski. I'm a 20-year veteran teacher at Rutland High School. Prior to teaching, I was a former country director for multi-million-dollar USAID funded programs in war-torn countries. I'm also a Rutland City homeowner, and like many teachers here, a city taxpayer. I'm honored to represent my fellow REA members, many of whom are here tonight, and all of whom teach because they love and are inspired by making differences in students' lives. I'm also here to thank you for what you do. I'm a former alderman, police commissioner, and board member of various nonprofits, and so I understand, honor, and praise your service. I'd like to start by saying we share a common bond. There's no doubt about it. Although we all play different roles, it's safe to say that 100% we're all here for the students, to help each and every student become a more skilled, productive, and healthy citizen. With that said, there's a key distinction. This distinction is that our teachers, along with our paraeducators, are the direct classroom link to the student. Regardless of any particular policy, written mission, grading system, or budgeted resource targeted towards kids in the classroom, if we as a collective cannot recruit, secure, and retain the best of the best, the most motivated, the most accomplished teachers, then it is the students who suffer. In other words, if students have less than the best teachers, then the students receive less than the best education. With this in mind, for the first time in my 20 years as a teacher at Rutland High School, the following is happening and negatively impacting our students' education. Many of our best and brightest younger teachers have left or are considering leaving for more pay. Teachers who have been retired for 10+ years have been recalled to fill unfulfilled vacancies. Math and science teachers have repeatedly been asked to compromise themselves by taking on overages for classes left without a teacher. And most significantly, 3 contracts ago, an open English or social studies position at the high school often receives 70 or more resumes. In the past few years, each open position has received barely a handful. That's not effective. That's not what we want for our students, all of us. Although part of this represents national trends, I can provide district-specific evidence why morale across Rutland City Public Schools is at what might be an all-time low. To put it bluntly, teachers within our district are tired of working without a contract and tired of economically falling behind. Over the last 2 contracts, although gross pay has gone up, total net compensation in real dollars has remained even, or even, for many like myself, has gone down. Let me repeat that. In the face of COVID, increased mental health demands, overwhelming screen use in life resulting in decreased attention spans, and a pervasive opioid epidemic, I am making, most of us are making, less money now than 6 years ago. And that does not include the burden of inflation that we've all carried. Case in point, medical contributions by teachers have doubled, $2,000. Contract days have been added, $300, $400, $500 a day. State elimination of the health insurance buyout, that's $4,000 for us with spouses in the district, $4,000. There's been an elimination of the 4% 403B employer matching contribution originally offered to make up for the city board pension mismanagement. It's approximately $1,500. State elimination of the HSA option, about $1,000 a year of savings for those with good health, particularly our younger teachers. And the elimination of the retirement incentive program, resulting in a half year of pay. Many of the people in this room, like myself, missed the cutoff with only 12 years left at the time. Prorated, that's about $4,000 or $5,000 a year. According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the CPI, Consumer Price Index, the go-to benchmark for reporting inflation to the American people, inflation has increased by more than 20% over the last 5 years, with inflation peaking at 9.1% in June of 2022, the middle of our most recent contract. And again, that hard money outlined above does not include the impact of this 20% less in purchasing power. So in sum, I ask that each and every board member, the school leadership, and the community at large consider these vivid teacher concessions and even sacrifices and act in a fair way, the right way, for the benefit of our students. Particularly with schools of similar size and challenges, Rutland City Public Schools now has one of the lowest paid teaching staffs in the county and across the state, even with the pension benefit teachers contribute to. Due to teacher concessions, we also have one of the lowest costs per pupil of any district of comparable size in the county or state. As our Board of Aldermen Chair, Michael Talbot, stated in Thursday's Rutland Herald, quote, "We need to make sure that what our officers are making is competitive. That can't be based on what people feel they should be making," unquote. Although we are talking teachers and not police, suffice it to say, all Rutland City Public School Board members, not just the negotiating team, need to be advocating for a competitive contract. The quality of education, derived from the quality of teachers you secure and retain, depends on it. It helps drive the local housing market, attracts quality businesses, and most importantly, helps students reach their potentials both inside and outside of the classroom. Please consider this and act now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyce. Bethany?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know if she,
Alada Salisky?
Alada, she put her name on too. Okay,
She's not.
okay, got it, okay. Okay, that's it, okay. That's it, yeah.
That's it, okay. Anyone else, public input? Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to our student rep reports.
It is Kindness Month at RIS. Although we focus on being kind every day, the month of February is when we highlight the acts of kindness we see. Our whole school was able to go skating at Spartan Arena over the course of 3 days to help break up the winter months, and teach a lifelong sport. We are looking forward to the next PBIS school-wide celebration, which should be happening soon as our school bucket is almost filled. Speaking of PBIS, for the 4th year in a row, RIS did receive recognition from the AOE for our exemplary practices with PBIS. Our 6th grade, along with our student council, has organized a penny war between the grade levels to benefit a high school which was destroyed by the wildfires in California. This was chosen by the students due to a personal connection with one of our teachers. January has been all about assessing and measuring our hard work over the first half of the year. Report cards were sent home on January 31st, and families can reach out to teachers with questions. We are really proud of every student at Northeast. The February Pause character trait is cooperation, and students have certainly been working cooperatively as they build snow sculptures and pull one another in sleds at recess time. If you happen to visit or call Northeast in the coming weeks, you'll be greeted by a newcomer in our main office. We're excited to welcome Ms. Piper Ramey as our new administrative assistant. Mrs. Olson is transitioning to her new role at Central Office, and while we will miss her, we are tremendously proud of her. We recently had our 1st grade assembly with the theme of kindness. The students in Ms. Stamey's class showed examples of how to show kindness. They are so brave to perform in front of our school community. Our first progress report went home this week. We revised the personal development section to reflect the portion of a graduate's traits. We start instructing and modeling these traits as soon as the students enter school, and we feel it is important to report out to the families. This month, we will host our family engagement event to focus on math instruction. This is the 3rd academic event to support families in helping their children learn about academics. Mathematics will be the last one of the school year.
Tonight, Stafford is hosting the CEDRR Chamber Mixer in celebration of our 50th anniversary and National Career and Technical Education Month. Mayor Dunges will be sharing a mayoral proclamation recognizing the importance of career and technical education in our region. Special thanks to our digital arts program. Students have been working with several of our house businesses to create brochures for our salon at Stafford and a new menu design for our Dollhouse restaurant. This is a great way for our students to collaborate across the center. Students enrolled in the VTSU English Composition course at Stafford with Melissa Patterson have been visiting Rutland Intermediate School and working with students around literacy. Our students have thoroughly enjoyed working with the RIS students weekly, and it is always a highlight of the week. At Rutland Middle School, the 8th grade is engaged in their Democracy in Action unit. This has been a great experience for them, and the unit will conclude with their How a Bill Becomes a Law assembly, where students will debate current bills being discussed in the Vermont legislature. Our Sweethearts and Heroes assembly was a huge success. It was one of the more poignant presentations we have seen and made a big impact on our students. A few of our 8th grade students advocated for opportunities they wanted to have available at RMS. As a result, we created a buddy readers program where 20+ middle schoolers read to several 4th grade classes. And we have a monthly Cooking with RMS TV show on PEG TV. Rutland High School was pleased to welcome published author Tekla Magoon to speak with sophomore English classes. Students are beginning their creative writing unit, and Ms. Magoon is an author of young adult fiction. She spoke with students about the creative process, the profession of writing, and her process of constructing a narrative. RHS hosted a speech tournament in January, which included over 60 Vermont competitors. Both Maria Drashillo and Will Lasky were recognized in poetry and extemporaneous, respectively. Maria also placed 2nd in the state tournament in poetry. Congratulations to Finian Smathers, who has been recognized as a National Merit Scholarship finalist. This distinction now makes him eligible for a conservation or merit scholarship.
Thank you. Coach Norman. Activities and athletic report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us and this opportunity to address the board. We're going to be talking a little bit about athletics activities. This is a report that we provide annually. This year we've invited 2 students.
My name is Grady Gallagher. I'm a junior right now at Rutland High School.
I'm Maria Chillo. I'm also a junior at Rutland.
Mike Norman, I'm the Athletic and Activities Director. Good evening.
So before we begin, I wanted to include, I put the portrait of a graduate on the front cover. As I was preparing for tonight's presentation and looking at the portrait of a graduate, I would respectfully suggest that I think that perhaps the greatest embodiment of the work that we do to paint the portrait of a graduate is done through our co-curricular activities. When we talk about integrity and empathy, put that after 3 o'clock when we're talking about sportsmanship. When we talk about collaboration, after 3 o'clock, we're talking about teamwork. All of these, I think, wellness, physical health and being well-rounded, all of these, I think, in terms of portrait of a graduate, are really highlighted and embodied by the work that's done after 3 o'clock in the co-curricular activities. So our presentation tonight, getting us started, Coach Norman is going to run through some of the numbers for you to just talk about some of the current state of affairs in terms of athletics and activities, and then we're going to turn it over to Grady and Maria. So without further ado.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. If you have any questions, please just put your hand up in the air, and I'd be more than happy to answer to the best of my abilities. Greg, can you move the slide there? Everybody has this in front of them, I believe, and then you can see it up on the screen. It talks about basically what this chart shows, how many activities that people at the high school, one being, 84 students are in one activity, and then it goes all the way down where there are 2 students at the high school that are in 8 activities. And again, I do not know how they do that, but they're better people than me, and these 2 folks here can speak better to that in a few minutes. Those numbers have gone up. This is for school year 23-24. Okay, so the numbers that we currently have at school are not up there. And then below that, it speaks to the athletic participation as well. And, we had 449 student athletes last year. That's 60.84% of our student body, and that's up about 4 to 5% from the year prior. And I think that's a pretty good number considering that the number of students has declined a little bit there. So I think, as I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, I think things are getting back to normal, or the new normal. And I think, you can see that there, and I would imagine that the numbers for the current school year are better than that. The next slide shows the members of the Athletic and Activities Council. There used to be an Athletic Council and an Activities Council. We combined it, and now, we meet, once every 4 to 6 weeks or more often if necessary. And as you can see, it's made up, faculty, advisors, school board members, booster club people, students there, and just get the perspective from both sides of the aisle, because a lot of times people try to pit athletics against activities, but as you'll see in a little bit here, they're the same folks. And to speak about, the portrait of the graduate and all those qualities that we're looking for. And we're currently working on trying to update the activities handbook. Again, we have some new administrators, and they're looking at things with a different lens, which is fine. And so our next meeting is going to be in the end of February, and we're trying to update the manual, not just for the high school, but to bring the middle school and the intermediate school up to speed as well, and hopefully get to a handbook that is similar to what we give the coaching staff, for the fall, winter, and spring sports. The next slide, Greg, please, speaks to, athletics and how many, kids are playing, how many teams that we have, how many coaches that we have. Did the wrong thing, I'm sorry. Speaks to our academic achievement, tri-scholar athlete. What that means at both the high school and the middle school is that you play 3 sports and you're on the honor roll all year long. I mean, to me, that's ultimately what a student athlete is about. And then those kids are recognized on a yearly basis. But really at graduation, last year, we had 7 graduating seniors who, did it for, their 4 years. And to me, that's epitomizes what the portrait of the graduate is all about. And kids learn in different ways. I mean, some people excel in the classroom and in the theater, but they also excel in calculus and chemistry and English and things like that. But there are kids that excel on one side of that, issue or the other. But at the end of the year, there are 7 people there. And then what happens is there's a plaque that's put up at school. Or so you're shaking your head because you were probably one of those people back in the day. You're making me feel old, And to emphasize that whole thing there. Because at the end of the day, as somebody said to me a long time ago, all roads lead to adult league. And you have to lead, you've got to get someplace with an education, and that's the most important thing. Below that is the Academic Achievement Award, and that's for community service. And again, our athletes are, mandated, made to do some community service. We do a lot of food drives. We do a lot of learn to skate. We do a lot of things with the recreation department and try to incorporate that and teach the kids, to give back and to do that. And then again, I'm going to speak to it later, but our Key Club is back up and running. We have over 50 kids, and they're joining every single week. And, Rebecca Badgley and Jamie Nichols are responsible for that. And, they did things like around trick-or-treating and things of that nature around the holidays. The next slide talks to the amount of students that are participating, the teams that we have at the high school, middle school level, and then it speaks to the coaching staff. And again, there's an asterisk next to some of the teams. What that means is that sometimes a stipend is taken and it is split in half or thirds or in quarters, and that doesn't even speak to the amount of people that volunteer their time. And again, there's just never enough. And again, I know this, last year was a point of concern about certain sports having more coaches than others. You know what I mean? And one thing, just a sidebar, is that, being a football coach as well, football is considered by the EPA to be a co-ed sport. There was some concern about Title IX and, fair and being fair and equitable. And then the other point was, the numbers. And right now, as far as USA Football is concerned, and the National Federation, the NFHS, which governs all of athletics across the country, you're supposed to, in football particularly, you're supposed to have 1 coach for every 5 to 6 student athletes. And again, we fall below that, and I'm sure we fall below that in other sports as well. But again, people talk about money and budgets and things of that nature. And it just talks about that, but our athletic count, the number of kids participating has gone up 80 to 90 in 1 year. And again, like I said, if the numbers are going up and the amount of kids going to school is going down a little bit, I think that speaks to the whole thing that what we're doing as a school district is working, and kids are getting more involved. And again, we would like to have everybody be involved in athletics and activities. The next sheet.
I just have a question before you go.
Sure. Yeah.
So the column of coaches, that's the amount of coaches that we pay each season?
On the right-hand side.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
That's the amount, and that really has not changed, to be honest with you. It has really not changed. But again, just to bring up coaches, it's a real concern right now, finding people to coach for all the reasons that everybody is aware of. So my plea to folks would be to try to be as supportive as you possibly can, because without getting into particular detail, there's a sport this spring at the middle school level that right now we don't have a coach. And if we don't have a coach, we're not going to be able to run the program. I'm sure, my gut tells me that somebody will step up and do it, but it's getting more and more difficult. Next slide. Okay, next slide, it just talks about sports and grades and who's playing and who's not playing at both the high school and the middle school level. And again, much the same thing, the numbers are going up, and as you can see, the pictures that are there, you know, I mean, the pictures with our flag is from our fall pep rally. And, you know, we'll have one in the spring. The difficult time to have a pep rally is in the winter, trying to find that time. So we're working on that, and then we have our Nordic skiers. So the next sheet, slide, please, talks about high school and middle school activities. And those numbers have gone up as well. Now understand that in the year 2023 and 2024, we did not run GMTI, and we did not really run Key Club, and we really did not run Model UN. But again, I'm happy to say that Key Club is back running, and Jamie came back and is doing it with Rebecca, and it's, like I said, that, you know, they're busting at the seams. There were over 50 kids last week at the meeting, and they're trying to get somebody. Megan Marsh is in the house here. She was our advisor for GMTI. That was when Jerry Kreitzer was around here way back, and we had the carnivals and the goldfish, and everybody probably had goldfish, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then Model UN, which again was another huge class, and I think we're still trying to recover from that as well. It's a lot of responsibility because some of these clubs do an overnight, and you know, some folks do not want to take on that responsibility of chaperoning there.
What are the unpredictables?
It's a singing group.
And what about Mousetrums?
Also singing group.
It's a singing group, but it's been we have been kind of morphing, going from one thing to the next. I mean, we had, not to mention names, but we had a young guy that was in charge of that who came on for Dan Graves, and he wanted to spin it one way, and then he left and took a different job, and now we have somebody else and they want to do it a different way, and we're trying to make it so it's not male or female dominated. It's for everybody to be more inclusive.
Thank you.
Okay. And then on the other side is the middle school. Like I said, middle school and intermediate school. And again, we're taking a hard look at that. It's going to be something that we're going to discuss at our next Athletic Activities Council meeting and try to come up with a more formalized handbook, ideally, knock on wood, for next fall to provide. We're just taking input from the admins at both schools. But I think those numbers have gone up as well. Again, high school a little bit, but the middle school and the intermediate school, the big issue is transportation. Because running clubs after school, kids are having to miss buses, and then they're going to have to get rides from their parents or their guardians, and we really don't run or have the means to offer, an extra bus or buses for that. So again, that's a concern that myself and others, we'd love to, get the kids when they're younger, get them involved, not just with athletics, but in the clubs and the fine arts. So then by the time they get into middle school and high school, it's just something, it's a part of who they are. And then the last sheet speaks to our athletic training services. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are very, very fortunate to have the relationship with the Vermont Orthopedic Clinic. We have a trainer that comes every day after school. We currently have two, Matt Howland and Tyler White. They're splitting time. Matt works at VOC here by the hospital. Tyler works up on the mountain. And we have one, sometimes two student trainers from Castleton. And they cover the training room every day after school for the most part. Yes, there was one of those few times in my long time of being that I was taping ankles yesterday. We're really lucky. And then having that connection to the medical people in the area. And again, a lot of our kids, truth be known, they get hurt, and my own as well, get hurt in college, and first person they call our athletic trainer. And then they come back here, and you can see you shaking your head. And they do a really, really nice job. And, it's one of those things, we've all been there. Your child sprains their ankle at practice or hits their shoulder, and you take them to DER, and they're just handling it how they handle it, and put them in a immobilizer and call the OC, and you're there, see them in 6 weeks. We have the ability to reach out to the trainer who reaches out directly to the doctors, and literally, and again, speaking as the football coach, we've driven from games, and on the way back to the high school, we drop the student athlete off, and they meet their parents there, and they get evaluated and get in to get MRIs and CAT scans and all that stuff that, we want to be doing that, but it really speeds up the whole process. And then the rehab, if your children have been hurt, the rehab that is provided to our kids is outstanding. You know what I mean? It's just, again, I have a couple of fake knees, so I can speak to that as well. They got me chugging along, so. I would say overall, I like where athletics and activities are. We could certainly improve in some of the areas, but I think our kids are well taken care of. And like I said, it's as pre-COVID normal as it has been in my humble opinion. Are there some outliers? Sure, we're trying to get more kids involved. And I think, coaches as well as the teachers during the day are doing a really good job of putting our kids in a position to be successful. So, do you have any questions?
In your opinion, do you think that not having bus transportation after practices prevents any kids from not participating, or keeps them from participating?
I'll speak to it in two parts. The first part would be the activities piece. I think if there was transportation provided at the intermediate school and middle school for clubs, so like the school gets out at 2:20, I believe, and then there's professional time, so they can't run their clubs at the same time because it's double dipping. I think that's the phrase. Is, kids are trying to get on the bus to get home, and unless they have a ride, and again, many of you, your kids, like my own, we were a taxi service for there, and I think that would help. And athletically, I think the biggest question that's asked, if there's a concern by people who are not Rutland City residents, is when they come to Rutland High School, for even middle school for that matter, but particularly high school, how do the kids get to if I'm an alpine skier, how do I get to the mountain? How do I get to the hockey rink? Or how do I get to Georgetti? Or, again, I think what a lot of people are used to, if they're not from here, is that the high school is there, and then all the athletic facilities are right there. You just walk out the door and go to practice. We do have some of that, but, if you look at, like in the fall, our soccer teams are at the polo fields. Football is at Northeast Service. The field hockey is based at the high school. Cross country could be Mountaintop, it could be Georgetti, it could be one of those places, and then where it really starts getting interesting, we have golf at the country club, and then in the winter, the hoops teams, they're going back and forth between the schools, high school and the middle school, and the dungeon, which is the intermediate school, and that's mostly middle school. The hockey teams, Alpine, which is at Pico, snowboarding, which is at Killington, and Nordic, which is up at Mountaintop. And again, to speak to that, I had one of those conversations, and I called my 86-year-old father, who was like Archie Bunker with a Red Sox hat, and he didn't understand how we didn't provide, I tried to say, he didn't understand how come we didn't do that, and I just said, Dad, it's just, resources are limited. Just for instance, on a daily basis after school, and I do the bulk of the scheduling, we're only allowed to schedule 3 trips away. So in other words, between the high school and the middle school, 3 buses can leave after they do their regular runs or what have you. And again, it's not maintenance or busing or anything like that. It's not the folks, they'd love to do it. But there have been times that you get a phone call, again, speaking to my own experience as the coach, on a Friday, we're going to play Essex. Got a call like 8:30. We have no buses to take you to your game tonight. Again, I'm trying to stammering on the phone. John Rice was the head of that outfit at that time, and he figured it out. They rented a bus from Premier, stuffed everybody in one bus with all the equipment. We drove to Essex, they dropped us off, they left, and then somebody who was doing a run or whatever, they drove to Essex and then drove us home. Yeah. In an idea where we would have a late bus for all that stuff, but I don't know if that's our reality or not. I'll leave that up to my boss and you guys.
May I weigh in on that?
Please.
It's hard to quantify because the number that I always have wondered about is the number of students who don't go out for the program because they know that there's a lack of transportation. So students that are on teams, I think we do a good job of figuring stuff out. It admittedly makes me nervous. I'll speak to my own kids playing hockey. You know, like there just became this rotation of, okay, I'm a freshman, I'm getting rides with some of the older players, and then when they were older players, they were giving rides to the freshmen. So I think the part that I can speak to is I think we do a good job when people are in those programs. What I don't think we have a good handle on, though, is how many people are saying, I don't know anyone on this team. I haven't done that before, so I'm just not going to go out for the team at all. Or I'm just not going to try out for the club. I think we would be better off with, another bus run, like a late run, and the logistics of all of that, I think, have yet to be figured out. But in answer to your question, I do think it has the potential to supplement what we're offering in terms of both athletics as well as activities. May I turn it over to the student?
Did Mary Beth ask a question?
I just have two quick questions. One is, under the Academic Achievement Award for activities hours, how many hours do they do to get the AAA winner? Like, what is?
It's 40 hours.
40, okay, got it, okay. I just was wondering.
They get, they get some credit by participating, because you can only do so much.
Sure, yeah,
You
okay.
get some credit for being an athlete as well. But a lot of these kids, like these two folks here, do a lot above and beyond.
Yeah, okay, I was just wondering what that hours were, yeah. And how do we, to your point, Greg, how do we know who's interested? Right, like how does a kid, hockey's a bad example, because you have to know how to skate and do all sorts of skill,
Had freshmen come out.
Yeah.
Get a senior come out 1 year.
Good point, valid point, but any sport, right? How do they hey, I want to try this. Like, is there like a...
I think what happens is, and again, I was new to the landscape a long time ago. Most of our coaches go into the, sending schools to find out what's going on. So as the football coach, I go to Rutland Middle School, I go to Rutland Town, I go to Barstow. Some people say, why don't you go to Christ the King, because we get a lot of kids there. And there used to be kind of a fuzzy line because MSJ had football. And just basically go there, and that's where I met Grady. I met Grady via Zoom, because that was during COVID.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that. It was like two kids from Barstow, and he was one of them. Most of our coaches do that. And as I say to them, and again, I think leadership is no longer transactional, it's transformational. You have to kind of adjust and roll with it. And if you don't, you're going to get lost in the back there. So the days of saying, well, I have 100 kids and I'm going to play, and if Grady and XYZ don't want to play, fine, we got plenty of kids. Even the kids that are in school, the coaches are constantly having to say, hey, Greg, you did a great job playing football. I haven't seen you today. I probably did that 50 times today. Hey, how you doing? Hey, you're not around. Hey, you need to be around. Kids today are really no different than they were back in the day. It's just that they communicate differently. And that whole, they want you to shoot them a text or get on Snapchat, sorry ladies, or Instagram or stuff like that. You guys aren't afraid to, that's why you're doing this, because you have confidence in yourself, and good for you. And I feel pretty comfortable that, could we do a better job? Yes. You know what I mean? Same thing with the clubs.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the data points, right? Like if there's just a general email survey that goes out and say, hey, what sports do you think you want to play?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Not micromanaging, just trying to get not even making a suggestion, just wondering, like, you have a freshman come in, how do they know to sign up for soccer tryouts, right? Like, like, how do they, pardon me?
When Rutland High School opened in 1994, now I'm really the old guy, we had 125 kids playing football. I mean, it's just, and we had 60 or 70 playing girls soccer, or 60 or 70 playing boys soccer, and 60 or 70 playing field hockey. You know what I mean? 50 running cross country, and 40 cheerleaders, and stuff like that. It was, not being from here, it was being Rutland. You know what I mean? You were going to play, and not just Rutland, Fairhaven, Otterby, Valley. But today, it's just, kids have more things to do, but to send a survey out or something like that, I don't think that would hurt. And I know that we had for clubs and activities, we had, I think it was like an open house that we did probably within the last couple of months. We did, I think we do a really good job of open house for incoming students, not just student athletes, student government. I mean, again, like I said, both of our kids went to Rutland High School, and one was really sports-oriented and did clubs, and one was really club-oriented and did sports, so they got both.
Yeah.
And we have a lot to offer, and I think a lot of times people who aren't familiar with what we're doing, to your point, think there's just this big beast of a school, and, it's just whatever their perceptions are. And, I think there's a lot of hands-on stuff going on with the kids. They do a great job of getting out there. We're going to have a community track meet. You know what I mean? And Amelia, she's the one driving that bus, which again,
Bus driver? We need bus drivers. Nice job. Well done. Yeah. No, I mean,
No, I mean,
I was just, like, I think our numbers look great. Like, I was just saying, hey, like, only to your point, Greg, like, hey, like, how does a kid who maybe is tentative and afraid, maybe they can, like, under the radar be like, yeah, I think I'd like to try freshman football, or, or try, anyway. Sorry.
The only thing, two things I was going to add. One is to your question, this is part of the strategic plan to study this and get real data. The other part is all these numbers that Mike's talking about. We also have numbers for Tapestry and Epic, and they're happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So you've got this whole other set of options for kids that we've heard about before. But so you look at these numbers, and you got to consider Tapestry and Epic too. So we've got a good chunk of kids that hit.
Well, like Coach was saying, some of us, when we were younger, that was like our only, if you wanted to connect, there was limited ways of connecting, and sports is one of them. After school things, that was how you connected, and now kids have lots of ways of connecting without doing that. So the environment is so different now.
Aging ourselves, Charlene.
The only way you're going to connect with people is to be there physically.
I think we're doing a lot of really positive things.
Yeah.
But if you could ever put it in a bottle and sell it, you'd be a multi-millionaire, because I'm involved at the national level with football in particular, and everybody is fighting the same fight, even in big urban areas that, where there's hundreds and hundreds of kids. It's just our population is such that we just have less numbers to start with. But I think we've done a good job of wrestling is back. I mean, last year we started as a club. Greg is a wrestler. He played freshman basketball. Good job wrestling, right, Grady? And now we have like 15, 18 kids that are wrestling. So again, there's other things there. If there's bass fishing, there's ultimate frisbee, There's all these different things. We just haven't bowling. Some schools have it, some schools don't. Our school, the kids really haven't shown much of an interest in doing it, but if there were a ton of kids that wanted to do it, then we would go through that process of starting this club and then taking it down that road and just getting more kids involved.
I didn't say that.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to, first of all, thank everyone for offering this opportunity. I'd like to thank Mr. Schillinger and Coach Norman for reaching out to me about this as well. My name, I introduced myself originally. I'll do it again. Courtesy. My name is Grady Gallagher. I'm a junior at Rutland High School right now. Extracurriculars to me have taken two alternate forms. One of them being in the field of general athletics, and one of them being in the field as club-focused activities. Sports like baseball, wrestling, football, and clubs like Key Club, Environmental Club, Student Senate. Despite their differences, I feel that they both build on one thing in their own sort of way, and that is that sense of community. As far as athletics go, without it, the friendships and relationships that have come to blossom would be no more than unwatered sea. I've met individuals that at first I never thought I would grow to like. And I hate to be that guy, but Coach was one of them.
You're not the only one who said that.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry I asked any questions, because this is so much better.
Those people that I speak of are the ones that I spend Sunday nights with, watching the Super Bowl and bickering over small, minuscule details that don't really mean anything. I played 2 full contact sports, and these are also the people who can literally, quote, lay the boom on me at practice, and then laugh about it with them right as soon as I get up. These people are the ones who have pulled me from being the quiet and under-the-radar freshman that I was when I entered Rutland to now a more outgoing role model member in the Rutland community. As we turn to clubs, that community feeling is still relevant, just in a different scope. Through soup bowls with hunger events and simple local service here and there, I get to give back to the community that has served me for so long. I also get to see faces that are not faces I see every day in high school. I can forge connections with individuals that I never knew existed, and those people, much like athletics, are people I bend over backwards to help out, even at a moment's notice. Activities hosted by Rutland fosters overall community growth. They encourage a mixing of different students with different backgrounds to create a similar life story and similar experiences for life. To end my message, don't just hear it from me. Hear from someone who shares my view, a renowned political activist and author, Helen Keller, who stated famously, quote, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much," end quote. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Dricillo, and I'm a junior at Rutland High School. When I was younger, I was very socially anxious. I had trouble speaking to people I'd never met. I couldn't make eye contact. I would shut down when asked a simple question, and I never really felt like I fit in to a certain clique or group. My freshman year at Rutland, I joined Encore Theater, and I finally found my place in the world. I was still shy, so I did backstage work, but I made friends and I met people who now I consider family. These people gave me the courage to get up on stage and act in the final show of my freshman year, which was something that I'd never done before, and I was terrified at the thought of. For some people, theater might not be a passion, and I wanted those people to find their place too. So with the help of friends and teachers, I started a Gay Straight Alliance to provide a place where no matter what, you will be accepted. Encore Theater also gave me the courage to join the forensic speech team. I found 2 poems that represented how I, as a girl, feel in this world today, and I wanted people to hear these poems, and through the poems hear me. This year, I presented the poems, and at the state tournament, I won 2nd place.
Congratulations.
In a school so focused on sports, it was important for me to find these clubs that have given me support in all aspects of my life. I'm thankful I can be a part of them. Without Encore, Speech, or GSA, I would not be where I am right now, talking to you all. I would be at home wishing I could fit in somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, congratulations. Both
That's
excellent
great.
speakers.
Nice job,
Nice
both
job.
of you.
Both of you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Oh, can I ask a question? How many kids would need to be interested in a certain activity before you would start a club? Okay, you were alluding to that earlier.
Basically, it's, if there's one student that has interest, and they come to me and we want to start a Pokemon club, which has been a question in the past when we had Pokemon clubs. You're gonna need, the most important thing is to find somebody in the school, an adult, to be an advisor, and then craft an introductory letter of what you want, what you're looking for, and who's involved. Then typically, give it the stamp of approval, and off they go. And then after a year or two, then if the numbers are justified, I talk to the building principal. He thought that that was the way to go, then we would bring it to superintendent and put it in as part of the budget, and that has happened. That has happened. Because that's how GSA started. That's back when Jenny Gartner was she volunteered her time as the first advisor for GSA, and we were one of the first schools around here to have it.
Just a brief example, 2 weeks ago, I had a student come in, and unbeknownst to me, he competes in arm wrestling. I didn't know that was a thing. He said, myself and a bunch of friends of mine, we really like to arm wrestle, and like there's such a thing as competitive arm wrestling. So we're going to have an arm wrestling competition, and it sort of starts with like a bunch of people hanging out doing the same thing together, and then they say, what if we sort of made this formal, and you add an event, you add an adult, you get some viability over time, and next thing you know, you've got a club or a team. So keep an eye out. Anyone interested in arm wrestling?
I'd be interested to hear too, like, you were saying how maybe you would be at home, what something to think about with young kids starting out as a freshman. Maybe what was that thing that got you to start doing what you did? Now you're involved, and I'm curious if that could be something that you could capitalize on and draw other people in. What maybe what was that thing that drew you in? It's interesting. Not that you have to answer that. I'm just wondering. Put you on the spot. Good question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That was
thank you.
really
Thank you.
informative.
Good job.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Your support.
Sarah, we're like watching you, and I'm like, who's out there? Yeah. The whole time.
I almost said,
I'm like, okay. Sorry. Thank you. Over there.
I was listening to Maria.
Wonderful speaker. Yeah. She paused in the right places. Yeah, measured.
You ready?
Oh, we're ready.
Okay, so I'm going to be brief this evening and spend the bulk of the time with the school here in Tuckney for those people watching on TV and the assistant superintendent. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction to the continuous improvement plan that each school develops and reports on, and then the bulk of the time will be used for two of the schools to share. So just a little bit of background, each school is required to have a continuous improvement plan that's required at both the state and federal statutes that require that. They used to have school-wide plans that were also required, but the state of Vermont was actually monitored by the federal government regarding the use of our title funds this past summer, so they've made some adjustments to the work they're asking schools to do. And now, as we move into next year, we can combine all that work through our continuous improvement plan. Those are updated annually. They are reviewed by the Agency of Education. They're really designed with an improvement science approach and really looking at improving students' performance. So that's a part of the work that we do every year. We undergo something called the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, where we look at a lot of different data, both at the district and school level. We complete a data inventory, and then collaboratively, we work on a district-wide continuous improvement plan. And then schools have to develop school-specific continuous improvement plans with lots of stakeholder involvement. And every investment we write into our title grant application has to be connected to our data inventory and our comprehensive continuous improvement plans. So, I'm going to very broadly sum up the goals for this year. The state requires that we have an academic achievement focused goal or goals focused around safe and healthy schools, and that we look at supporting equitable experiences. So I think those all tie very nicely into our strategic plan work in the areas of teaching and learning, wellness through inclusive school communities, and resources for success. And we will continue to align those as we build out this year's set of plans, which have a new and exciting template from the Agency of Education. And then each year with and we will bring those final plans to the board. We actually have to approve those. And they also connect to our portrait of a graduate. So again, this is the 3 primary focus areas in our strategic plan. And tonight you will hear from both Rutland Middle School and Rutland High School about the work that they're doing in their school update connected to their plans as well. And then next month you'll hear from Northeast, Northwest, and the intermediate. So that is all from me. I'm going to turn it over to Middle and High School. I don't know who would like to go first.
Thank you, Pia.
I got a crew.
Don't everybody jump at once.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. We are going to be speaking about the continuous improvement plan in regards specifically to the high school. And with me tonight is
Brett Latola, Associate Principal.
Jim Whitmore, Associate Principal.
Steve Sampson, Associate Principal.
Explain you a few numbers out there. First of all, a little bit about enrollment. As of October 1st, our enrollment goes up and down, floats around a little bit. It was 722. It's a few more students than that right now. We have 19 students who are enrolled in early college this year, which is an opportunity for seniors to basically spend their senior year in a college program. Approximately 3% of our student population has been identified as homeless. A number that I did not put up there, but I do want to highlight, about 163 students in the high school are coming from tuition towns. So that's about 163. It's roughly another class. It's about, when you add tuition students who are choosing to come to Rutland High School, who have the choice, and their towns will pay tuition. There's about 163, and then we have 35 students who are here via school choice. So that's a total of 198 students in our student population, which is about 27%. About what surprise. Is about 27% of the high school population that has a choice of where to attend and chooses Rutland High School. I personally count that as an important metric because ultimately I think we offer, we just talked about athletics and activities. Like that's strictly from 3 o'clock on. But that's one piece of this constellation of offerings, whether it's class offerings, courses that we offer. I think it's important to know just for our catchment area, if you will, we are continuing to draw in a significant portion of students. And like I said, it makes up about 27% of our student population. You are going to hear some numbers, you're going to see some charts, and there's a number of different facts and statistics that we'll be addressing tonight. It is important, I think, to continue to look kind of beyond the numbers, though, as well. When we talk about enrollment and all of those kinds of things. The pictures that I've included here, I wanted to specifically focus on the portrait of a graduate traits in terms of wellness and empathy. Something that I don't think gets quite the attention that it deserves all the time are all of the community service efforts that through various activities the high school students engage in. And I say that very deliberately. This is work that's done by the high school students. So just a few examples. In the bottom left there, our Rutland High School rock climbing team worked with some of the younger students through the Tapestry program to do rock climbing. And when you're that age, you feel a lot more comfortable having somebody who's 3 feet taller than you and seems to know what they're talking about. You're a little more willing to be 10, 12, 15 feet off the ground because somebody like that is holding the other end of the rope. So it's a great way to get young students involved. The two others, our Key Club has really blossomed this year. Like we had kind of a down year last year. I think we're up over 50 students this year. The sole purpose of Key Club is community service. Like that's all they do. So 2 of the activities there, they participated or they hosted trunk or treat around Halloween, again to kind of invite some of the younger students of the community to come in a safe environment where they could get dressed up and have a good time. And then the bottom left, one evening, the Key Club, you had 50 students just filling the library, and all they were doing was doing holiday greeting cards for folks that maybe are elderly or don't have somebody that they're getting cards from. So they were just doing homemade greeting cards for folks in the community. And of course, the last one in the top right there, Soup Bowls for Hunger, is a long-standing fundraiser. It's actually run through DKG, which is sort of the Education Honor Society. But students are volunteering and participating, and those soup bowls, they're handmade. So that takes months of effort. Elizabeth McReynolds is integrally involved in that as a teacher, but it's kids that are in there doing the soup bowls that end up being given away. So when we talk about these goals and academics and numbers and all those kinds of things, it's important to me to highlight there's a lot going on behind those numbers as well. And that's some really outstanding work being done by students. We had 3 areas of focus in this year. Taking again from the portrait of the graduate characteristics, they are critical thinking, wellness, and adaptability. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to some of the. I think Mr. Rotola is up first.
Yeah. So the first thing is critical thinking. So we're trying to delve deep into our data at the high school this year. One way we're doing that is implementing fast bridge testing. So fast bridge testing is a standardized assessment. It's otherwise known as a benchmark assessment, that measures students' abilities in math and ELA. They do it at the younger grades currently. I know they do it at the middle school, I believe. They might do it at the intermediate as well. Historically, we have not done it at the high school, but given that our students are with us for 4 years, it makes sense that we just continue that, tracking that data even more now. We implemented it. We had kind of like a soft rollout in the fall. We had a very small number of students try it out for us in the fall, and then we opened it up to all of our freshmen in the winter time. So we're just kind of gathering that data in right now as far as where our freshmen are ELA and math skill-wise. Once we really get rolling, it will be 3 times a year. So it's a test done 3 times a year. We can track individual students' growth over that year, and then if we continue on to next year, we'll have even more. Yes, go ahead.
I just had a question about that. Is this like the standardized testing that gets shipped out? This is all internal?
Correct.
I think that's awesome.
Yes.
Because I think some of us are hearing, that people are concerned that our test scores are declining despite how much money is being spent on education.
Yeah, we get almost immediate feedback from the platform. They give us areas for suggestions for areas of improvement on a class-wide level, like a grade 9 level, if you will, but also for individual students as well. So it's really helpful for teachers and us as building administrators to know kind of where we are. And then we can adjust kind of our instruction, building wide and in the classroom, and adjust our assessments if we need to based on the results.
That's great.
That the students give us.
This must be a national average or something that you
It's a
can
national benchmark.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the graph? What is, I see that it's benchmarked, but
you can
what are the colors?
I don't know.
Let me interrupt for a second. I just kind of grabbed it.
Okay, this is not actually. We do Fast Bridge at Rutland Town, so I'm like, this is not the data we have. Okay, this is not real. Great. Thank you for clarifying.
Just to break up the words.
I can explain kind of the general picture. Don't look at the percentages, please.
Right. I was concerned.
So there's a fall window, and then we kind of can catch kids that didn't do the fall window in the late fall window, winter, late winter, spring, late spring. So like I said, it's 3 times a year. And we can track kind of how a student is progressing and how we're progressing as a school in both ELA and math.
Excellent.
And then obviously with all of that, all of those results comes all the data and what to do with the data. So EduClimber is another area where we're trying to delve into this year. EduClimber is a kind of a data visualization tool that's available to the district. And it basically, we're basically able to view all the different types of data for our buildings and for our students. So that could be course grades, standardized tests, including FastBridge and BTCAP, which is the one that you were referencing, and all up to like behavior, attendance, things like that. So it's kind of takes all of our individualized student information systems, other platforms we use, and put them into one place where teachers can go, administrators can go, and visualize all of that stuff in a way that makes sense. Thankfully, we have Bethany Sprague, who is an EduClimber data expert, and she has been gracious enough to come and meet with us during the last couple faculty meetings that we've had at the high school to basically teach us how to use EduClimber. So we can make sense, like I said, make sense of the data, learn how to use the platform, so that teachers know what they're looking at and know what they need to do in their classrooms to make adjustments and things like that. So that's another area where we are focusing on this year. And then moving forward for critical thinking, like I said, we're rolling out the FastBridge with grades 9 this year. We are planning to continue that and roll it over to grades 9 and 10 next year, so we can continue that kind of longitudinal analysis of student learning. We also want to plan some professional development around instruction based on all of those results. And we are hoping to work with our new MTSS coordinator, Lindsay Ryder, to provide some PD for teachers on how we can make some adjustments within our classrooms, so we can kind of help our students improve ELA and math and anything else at the classroom level, as well as on the individual level as well. Any questions on that section?
I'm going to talk about the high school's wellness initiative and some of the things that we've been doing for the last few years. And if our presentation was on a different night than Mike Norman and his team's presentation, I would have covered some of the extracurricular and athletic activities. But Mike Grady and Maria did such a nice job, I don't have to get into that. But certainly those areas play a large role in the wellness and health and well-being of the students at the high school. And we have a tremendous program and programs available to our students. We're very grateful for all of our coaches and volunteers who contribute to the success of all of those programs. Another big initiative within our wellness program at the high school has been our SEL, Social Emotional Learning Initiative. And again, that's been in place for a number of years. You've probably heard us present to the board previously. Primarily that work is being done during our advisory period on Monday afternoons, and has been facilitated by a couple of different folks. Stacy Shortle began that work a few years ago. Joy Kogut has kind of picked up the reins of that effort. More recently, every week teachers have some curriculum that they're instructing their students on, their small group instructions. And then the thing that's nice about that is a lot of those advisors are now taking those strategies into their core content areas and using those strategies in classrooms as well. So it's going beyond just our Monday advisory period. So that's a little bit about our social emotional initiative. And then also for the last few years, we've been talking about digital wellness. We have a variety of offerings academically through our IT department with a big emphasis on digital wellness. It's talked about during health class. Digital wellness, we talk about appropriate social media use and technology, and primarily we're talking about phones these days. And phones, frankly, I think for probably every school in the country has become, a topic of, a focus topic. And last year, Greg and a team of teachers worked on developing a procedure to implement this year. So we have a new electronic device procedure that we have implemented, which basically asks that students not have their phones, headphones, AirPods, that sort of thing out or visible during class time. And the response has been actually quite positive. Teachers are reporting that there are many fewer issues with devices than there have been in the past. And the procedure is much more defined this year than it has been in the past. In these next couple of slides, talk about some statistics that we've gathered through looking at EduClimber. This speaks to some referrals over the course of the first 5 or 6 months of the school year, and you can see the decline in electronic device violations over the course of the year. And then we also administered a survey to our faculty and staff. And I think we had about 35 or so responses out of about 75 or so, I think, adults, so about 40%. Brett, how's my math? Okay, not bad, good. So pretty good return on the surveys. And the responses have also been very favorable, as you can see there. You know, that's 99% or so.
Put me on the
You
spot
know,
now.
right. Teachers have seen a positive effect in their teaching environment. And we have a few more, I think, slides here with some statistics. Has a procedure help promote self-regulation? And again, a very high percentage of responding staff members agree that it has had a great deal or somewhat of a great deal positive effect. And I think, is there another one there, Greg? Is that it? Okay. So all in all, you know, the new cell phone procedure has had a good response by both students and teachers. So it's going quite well based on the data that we're receiving back. And I think Jen's next.
I am. And Brett, I'm not going to ask you to check in right now. I have no math to check. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how at RHS we practice adaptability and flexible programming for our students. And really what we're doing, this first slide is about individualized scheduling. And you know, it's our way of trying to reach the whole spectrum of students at Rutland High School. And the first one is competency-based classes. These classes are designed for students who have more of a hard time in a more traditional classroom. So we have classes that are in all 4 content areas: math, science, English, and social studies. And the students have to meet the same standards as the students that are in a more traditional classroom, but they might show their competencies in a different way. It might be in a larger project, or it might be in just a different way that the teacher's working with them. A lot of them do some individualized work with that. So we found that it's a way that these students learn better, or a certain portion of students learn a little bit better. We also have credit recovery. Fern Fryer is our credit recovery coach, and she is a Renaissance woman for sure. She knows how to teach students chemistry and calculus and anything. She can pretty much do anything. But so when students are in danger of failing a course, we will try to schedule them with her, and she will help them get caught up in the class. She'll work with them and make sure that they're caught up, and she does a fantastic job there. As you know, we've talked about advanced placement classes before. We have about, here's some math. I was going to say 10 to 12. I tried to calculate. Okay, good. I didn't ask you to calculate. Depending on the year, we do have about 10 to 12 typically advanced placement classes. Greg mentioned early college. Again, we have 19 students participating in there. We also have a robust life skills curriculum for students who need that, as well as a school to work program. Another thing that we have sort of expanded is that collaboration, conversation with RMS, so that when the students come to us from 8th grade into 9th grade, we're really making some thoughtful planning for them, so that when they come, we're putting them in the right classes, we're putting them in the right program, so that when they get to RHS, we're not having to move them to a different, it's really hard when a student is in one class and then we have to move them to another because maybe it's not the right placement. So we really try to have some thoughtful conversations with the administration at our MS so that we can hopefully make the right choices. We don't always get it right every time, but we want to make that percentage higher.
Jen, are you able to do that with other schools like Barstow or?
Yeah, we do. We do that with. We do that in special ed. We don't do it as much with the school counselors. Do that. That's true. The school counselors will meet. They go there and register the students, and typically they will have a little bit deeper conversations with those students and the families when they're there, so. Good question. Okay. So another way that we're adapting to students' needs is through our ELL program. We have 28 students. We went from 6 to 18, and now we have 28 students, and they speak 7 different languages. So it's been a learning process for all of us, truly. And we have, this year we started offering sheltered classes. These classes are all for academic areas. They're taught in English. And the work is that the teacher is working on them is with fluency and comprehension, as well as whatever's in the content area. And our teachers, there are regular teachers, and they're learning along with them because they haven't taught. Most of them have not. One of them might have taught ELL before, but the others have not. So we're offering them some PD to learn that, learn how to teach, best teach ELL students. And Marissa?
How many ELL teachers do you have for these 28 kids?
So we have one in each content area right now.
Okay.
But we
ELL
also
teacher
have,
or
I'm sorry,
just
we have-
regular
We
academic?
have one teacher who is she's the
ELL certified,
teacher.
gotcha.
Yeah, you can see her in the picture there. So. But then we have the 4 teachers that are teaching those content.
Is that enough?
We have 3 in the district.
Okay.
Oh, district-wide.
And
28 seems like a lot for one.
adequately meeting our needs
Okay.
this year, but that's an increase from previous years.
Yeah, looks like steadily increasing. Thank you.
Increase has been happening across the district.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Grade their family.
Yeah.
Right, and many of the students who you see here have younger siblings who are at the middle and intermediate schools.
That's great. And we also have a couple programs for students who also struggle in a more traditional classroom. We have School Within a School, and this is, you've heard about this program before, I think. It's at the end of the day, it's 1 block at the end of the day, and then 1 hour after school. And it's taught by 2 full-time teachers, and we have a content teacher that comes in and teaches in all content areas, and some elective teachers as well. We have PACE, and PACE is taught during the school day, and it's a self-contained classroom, but students can come in and out. They can take classes in more traditional classes, but they can also use that room as kind of a home base. A lot of students will use that because they become very familiar with the teachers that are in there and comfortable with them. So a lot of them will go there maybe in between classes, or if they're struggling, having kind of a hard time, or if they need to have another place maybe to take an assessment or just work. Again, content areas rotate through there. We also have Grove Street, which I know most of you know about. 40 students are there. They work on a 2-hour block with a contract system. We have, right now we have 3 full-time teachers there and 1 who teaches there part-time. And we're proud to say we had 8 students graduate there, graduate from there in January.
Awesome.
That's great.
So those are our 3 areas of focus. Again, critical thinking, wellness, and adaptability. I'd like to open the floor at this time.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
Well done. Thank you.
All right, now the middle school. Most of you have met Sean after his riveting presentation on the strategic plan last month. This is Sean Murphy, our assistant principal. We're going to tell you a little bit about the middle school.
It's very little.
I was going to say, yeah.
That's the best I'm going to get.
All right. should be able to within fit one page within the window. Yeah, click that.
This is what we get. All right. It's great.
Looks good.
So, in middle school, we have about 250 students at this point, and those numbers continue to rise. We have, our students are broken down into small group advisories. We have 21 advisories, and each advisory ranges from 8 to about 14 students. Each teacher has a core group of students that they meet with every day. They go over social emotional learning, they check in on academics, they check in on families, so it's a way to build a smaller community within our school. In addition to the 3 different houses that we have, when students come to us, they are separated out into different houses, not with a sorting hat, but we've talked about that. We have birch, maple, and hickory. Each house has a content area teacher, a counselor, and a special educator. Again, it's a way to help kids transition to the 6th grade, where they go back and forth between 2 classes into a smaller group. Each house is kind of housed in a hallway, so it eases the class transitions. It allows the teachers to get to know the students pretty well, and it allows the teachers really clear communication with each other about their set group of students. One of the areas that we focused on is wellness, and it ties right in with one of our improvement plan goals, which is to increase attendance throughout the school year. We focused on wellness through creating a sense of belonging. We really try to make middle school a comfortable, happy place where students want to be. We tried to do that, we continue to do that through a lot of different school activities. Lifelong sports you've heard of has been phenomenal. We're in our 6th week, so we just really look forward to that. Teachers are introducing different brain breaks throughout the day based on some of our behavior data, and we have a hallway system pass, so we can monitor when kids are out of the class. So we try to make kind of staying in the class more comfortable for them. Our athletics, we've started unified physical education this year, which has been phenomenal. Cooking with RMS, which Amelia talked about earlier, all of the different clubs we have, the spirit weeks that the students get into, although I think our staff might get into them.
I've seen staff in here. I think the staff gets into it more than the students.
We really do. We love Spirit Week. And Costume Singer, which Abby Bennett directed. All of our students had a chance, or all of our teachers had a chance to sign up and sing in front of their students. I can't say enough about our staff as it is, but the idea of standing up and singing in front of 250 middle schoolers really lets you know
Take
how
some
brave our
guts.
staff
Yeah.
is.
It's terrifying.
Some of the data that I really wanted to present to you tonight is our school climate survey data. This is a survey that we give our students 3 times a year to check in on how they're doing, what they think about us, what they think about middle school and their experience. This year, our results have been awesome. We have almost 80% of our students say they feel safe at school. Over 80% of our students report that they have a trusted adult that they can go to at the middle school, which is incredibly important to us. Our staff works really hard to build those relationships with the students, and I think this data shows that. We've been giving this survey for about 3 years. For the first time, we have a solid 78% of our students that report they are proud to be a Rutland middle schooler, which I think is huge. And middle school, it's not cool to say that you're proud to be a middle schooler. And you may have heard the middle school has had a bad reputation in the past. I think this number really just blows that out of the park. Our kids are proud of the school, they're proud of themselves, and mostly happy to come every day. Another area that we focused on is critical thinking.
You're going to go back and talk about these pictures, right?
I was going to say, you skimmed right over those.
I was like, this is...
It could be at the end, it's fine, but...
So this is how how we made a post welcoming kids back. We did a countdown on Facebook.
Nice.
And so we all went out and danced on the front steps in shark costumes. These are two students who performed at our coffee house. Part of the community resource night was that students were invited to present, or to perform, in an effort to get more students and families into the building. And these two really nailed it. They were awesome. And the bottom right is two of our 7th graders, and we pranked Mr. Murphy. We welcomed him to the middle school by covering his car in roses and balloons and stuff.
Perfect.
These are some.
Those ones are more self-explanatory.
Most of those are lifelong sports, and then a picture of one of our kiddos enjoying some time with the therapy dog that stops by every now and then. So we are highly invested in our FastBridge testing. We've got some data on the next page that we can show, but we use the testing data to schedule students in our interventions. We have a math interventionist and we have an ELA interventionist, and we put kids in there based on teacher recommendation and FastBridge scores, and kids are able to test out based on teacher recommendation and FastBridge scores. So we've had some flexible in and out of that class. It's at the same time as our UA, so kids are certainly motivated to get out of it, and often want to retest and retest and retest again, and are putting in a lot of effort in those classes to close the gap and really improve those skills. We piloted a far out program, which it's flexible advancement and remediation, and then we added the out because far out sounds more fun than the FAR program. And what that is we unhouse our math and our ELA departments so that we can target specific skills. So if we're looking at a specific skill area and we have kids that are ready for more challenging work, we can provide them more challenging work. And if we have kids that need to work on a specific skill to really bring them up to grade level, we can group them in that group. And then the kids that are just needing to reinforce kind of grade level concepts, we can do that as well. And one of the really cool things about FastBridge is that we now have figured out the right test to give so that we can get very specific data on what our small groups should be working on. So it's a really targeted intervention, and our math and our ELA teachers are looking really closely at their curriculum and the recommendations from FastBridge to really hone in, and ideally it's accelerated remediation or really kind of releasing the kids that are ready to fly, and the, I guess, intended but not often thought about consequence of that is that our test scores are going to improve, because not only are the kids that really can do it able to explore more challenging concepts, but the kids that are struggling are then able to come back up to grade level in kind of that intensive. I think our math department does a week, and our ELA department does 2 weeks of morning classes where they're mixing up the teachers and the kids. And then we're working really hard on changing the culture with our students so that they're looking at their scores, they're very aware of their scores, they're very aware of how we're using their scores. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the goal setting that they're doing with those scores.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. You said that intervention was at the same time as UA. What's UA?
Unified Arts, so art, PE, music.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So yes, very motivating.
Yes, and it is an every other day. They also have opportunities during C block to be part of UA, so they're not being excluded from UAs, yeah. But they're not in as many UAs as kids that are not in.
Cool, thank you.
So this is our group screen. This is our group screening report for Fastbridge. They do in ELA, they do A-read, and then they also do auto-read as their test. In math, they do A-math and CBM math, and then that's where we're able to use our screening to intervention to look at our high-risk kids, our kids at risk, our kids that we're not concerned about, and then the kids that are considered high flyers. The benchmark score is in relation to how likely it is that the student will be on grade level when they complete the year. So our 7th graders benchmark is based on how likely they are to be at completing 7th grade level work at the end of the year in 8th grade. And then there's the norms report, which would be comparing them to other students around the country. And one of the really cool things about the individual student reports is that it will tell us the list of mastered skills, the list of developing skills, and the list of future skills, and that is the part of the data that we use when we're targeting our interventions and going through our far out program.
I think this is like ticking a lot of boxes for people. Just listening to what you're talking about, I'm really interested in the Fastbridge, and it's ticking off all the boxes that people want to hear. It's instant, almost feedback, so you can adjust, quickly and get the students up to where they want, because I know a lot of people are concerned about the condition of maybe test scores and where kids are at now, and so I think everything that you're saying is what everybody wants to hear.
No, it's amazing, and I as a former math teacher, I love data, and within the Fastbridge, we do it 5 times. We do the early fall, late fall, winter, early spring, late spring. So we take full advantage of all the testing windows that Fastbridge has to offer. And within that, there's also progress monitoring. So we have a group of students that are doing progress monitoring along the way as well. So they're able to work on specific skills and then do progress monitoring. And I think as we get better at using the intricacies of Fastbridge and we get teachers more used to going in and looking at what's available in the recommendations, and I mean, there's almost full lesson plans that they'll provide for small group instruction that our teachers could look at and then pull from as they make it their own, because they know their kids and they can look at what's being suggested and pick and choose, which is it's an incredible resource. And I think as we continue along what we're doing, it will certainly continue to be a huge resource for us. This is an example of what we have students do, where they're going in and they're writing down their A math score and their A read score. They're making a goal for the fall, the winter, the spring, and then reflecting on that, because I think it's really important that our students are reflecting about their learning. And I think the more that they look at the data, the more that they talk about it, the more that they're going to take ownership of it. I think as we've talked, one of our big goals for our students is for them to take ownership of their learning and to be working as hard as the teachers are in the classroom, because it's theirs. I mean, it's something that they get to take with them the rest of their lives. And I think the better that we can do to prepare them, the more successful that they're going to be at the high school, or they can take advantage of all those great things that Coach Memo was talking about.
I think it ties in with wellness as well. I mean, they'll feel better, I'm speaking, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping, seeing some sort of improvement in setting goals for themselves, give them a sense of pride and a wellness feeling to go along with all that.
Absolutely.
That was 6 to 8 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, as an aside, I've worked in 2 other districts. I've high school with both of them, and I've come here and people said, "Oh, you're going to middle school. Watch out for middle school." But I have been so impressed at the culture that Megan and the middle school has built around community and the importance of giving those kids a sense of belonging, so that we can focus on the academics. Because if they don't have a sense of belonging, it's going to be really tough to get them on board with what we're trying to do in the classroom. We this summer revamped our PBIS system, and we focus on our "we are" statements. We trying to come up with like a tagline for Rutland Middle School, and we have this "we are" RMS with the Rutland R instead of spelling it correctly, which I don't know if our English teachers feel about that. It's more text. I mean, based on, again, what Coach Norman said about Snapchat and all that other stuff, kids know what we mean, and they can get on board with it. So we tie all of our PBIS points that we put through our system to "we are gritty," "we are self-aware," and "we are good citizens." We're thinking about those portrait of the graduate traits and what's super important for our middle schoolers to walk away with, and giving them, again, opportunities to feel successful when maybe academically it is challenging. But if you can show grit, if you can be self-aware and reflective on your behavior and ultimately be a good citizen, like, those are things that we want for our community. We went to the hospital as an admin cabinet. They were talking about things they're looking for in employees, and I think we're trying to weave those in to everything that we do in combination with the academics, because I think you do need a well-rounded person graduating from high school to then go be a contributing member of whatever they decide.
We also focus a lot on adaptability and rolling with the punches and regrouping and coming out on top. Some of the ways that we do that are with our Bridges program. That is a program for some of our students who are dedicated to their learning, they're invested, but sitting still in a class or sitting in one room doesn't work for them. So it's much more of a hands-on, project-based learning program that serves some of our 8th graders right now. That has been really successful. Field trips. Our teachers have gone out of their way to find different experiences in the community for our students to engage with. We're starting to tap into some career exploration. Our Yes Plan program is a phenomenal way to help kids with adaptability and learning in new and different environments. Our Climb program is new this year. This is something that I think we're both really excited about. This is an alternative to suspensions. So it runs when a student needs a consequence that needs to be pretty significant. We can put them in our Climb program. The parents agree. The parents come in, they sign a contract saying they want their students in Climb. The student then has an opportunity to meet with the teacher for an hour a day to work on academics. They work with their counselor throughout the day to work on social emotional learning. They work with Ms. Bennett to talk about their decisions, the consequence of their decisions, what the consequence was for everybody around them based on their decisions, and to complete an accountability project related to whatever the behavior was that put them in Climb. We really love this because, one, it helps office staff build a rapport with these students. They're keeping up on their academics. There is the accountability project, I think, directly ties, it's a perfect natural consequence. And they're here with us, they're supervised, they're safe. So that has been really successful, and it's something that we're hoping to flesh out over the next couple of years and working to an even better program. We have lake days to start and end our year, where teachers have different activities at a lake, and all 250 of us get in buses and go spend the day at a lake. Teachers take them hiking and fishing and lots of awesome stuff. And empathy. Empathy is a huge one for middle school students. Developmentally, they're not all at the point where empathy, comes second nature to them, so it's something we really work on. Our house structure helps with that a lot. They're working with the same kids and the same teachers, and they learn how to interact with each other. They learn, each other's stories and why they are the way they are, and it helps build that community and empathy. The advisory curriculum, our counselors build and give to the teachers. That has a huge amount of empathy in it, and our Sweetheart and Heroes was a great way to kind of hit home with that for the kids.
Is that the new beautiful outdoor
Yes.
learning area?
that looks
That's
gorgeous.
very nice.
That's pretty furniture.
Yeah.
I'll
Looks
show you a
good.
picture when all of our furniture.
But
comes
you
in.
can see how big it is with the kids.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
It really is.
Buildings and grounds.
Okay, I gotta throw it in.
Building
I saw it.
committee chair.
Oh, interesting.
Along with empathy, one of our students has asked to start a Buddy Readers program. So she got 20 to 25 of her classmates, and we go down to a fourth grade class, and they read. Community Resource Night was totally a teacher initiative. Chris Van Skyver is one of our English teachers. He has spent countless hours creating this opportunity for our parents to come in and learn about all of the different resources in Rutland County in a really non-threatening, friendly way. That's been awesome. He has student volunteers at it. This year, actually, Mr. Van Skyver was out sick on the day of Community Resource Fair.
Oh, no.
And one of our 8th graders stepped up and took over.
Wow.
She had a walkie and a clipboard, and she really just ran.
Oh, wow.
That's
Thanks.
the whole thing.
That's cool.
So, yeah, that was phenomenal. We have told all of the Rutland City exchanges. We've opened up to 8th graders at this point.
Oh,
The
great.
Japan exchange Dubai has always been, but Germany and India are now open 8th graders, which travel just inherently raises your level of empathy. And Rutland Rising is a program that is also completely teacher initiated. David Perez started this to help our transition for our 6th graders in. So they have different opportunities throughout the year to come in, meet teachers, observe a class, all of that good stuff. That's it. Any questions?
You said you couldn't pay me to go back to middle school. So kudos.
Let's say, but maybe.
I kind of want to go now.
Well, right, except for, yes.
Feel like when you talk about the school budget, maybe this presentation should be first.
I like that.
People
Right.
would be really excited about investing in what you're doing.
It really is, it's just, middle school's a lot of fun.
Yeah, kudos to you guys, yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, let me rephrase it. I meant like, wow, like the work you do is huge and important and difficult, and look how fun it is, right? So, yeah.
And you had mentioned, as you had mentioned, you know, it had a bad reputation at one point, and both of my daughters were in that time frame. So like this now compared, it's like night and day. It's only been 6
Changing
years.
the narrative, which is
Yeah,
nice.
it's just, I mean,
Changing
yeah,
that, which is,
'cause, I mean,
it's good.
Emma was the same time. Yeah, it's just not the same. These surveys are my favorite page, the surveys.
I will, when I give this school climate survey, it feels like Christmas, like I just want to see the results.
Yeah. It's like, it's awesome.
So, and these ones, it's super exciting.
It's exciting.
Keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up for sure.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's great, thank you.
Thank you. You're very proud.
Superintendent's right, I have nothing to say.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. I frequently say to myself, what would Dave Walk do? What would Mary Meyer do? Sometimes I say to myself, what would Rob Bliss do? Rob Bliss right now would say, we gotta stand up and take a break. I've been sitting too long. Sorry.
Okay.
I'd say we all have stood up.
Rob Bliss, he would lead us in calisthenics.
Can we have Clemens come on after me?
Come on.
I know, when I was
Just want him to reiterate the pupil, because there's some rumors going around that it's $30,000 our cost per pupil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like just
Maybe when I go over the, I was about to complain, like every year, I'm like, I'm not.
Okay.
You can complain. Maybe when I do finance.
I complain a lot.
You're like allowed.
Because,
Yeah. This is the only time you get the excuse.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd just like him to address it so that it gets out to people.
Thank you for that. It's not gonna happen.
Nope.
I'll just start with, I
Watching that.
had two things I wanted to say, but I'm gonna up it to three, if that's all right. I just ran into this today, this afternoon. I saw that the Rutland Regional Medical Center has the Employee of the Quarter, Courtney Hall.
Way to go.
Thank you so much.
CCW.
No.
No, you won't. It's really good. I'll pass it around. How about
Please
that?
don't.
I've already read it.
I know.
I read it too.
If you want me to sign it,
I have to.
I read it on.
It's great.
Basically famous.
My first quick topic was school budget. We are moving towards town meeting day, and we've had a lot of different opportunities for the benefit of the public to understand how our budget is built and what it consists of, what our goals are. If you haven't followed along on PEG TV and seen some of this, it's all on their PEG TV YouTube site. So please check that out if you're an interested voter. And Ted and Tim have done a great job all through from September onward, explaining how the budget works and how we arrived at this number. Our budget looks really good this year, so we want to make sure people see that. We also did a half-hour presentation on Christy Coluti's show, the Learning Lounge. So Ted and Tim and Bianca and I went and talked about the budget. So there's a lot of detail there. It might even put you to sleep, possibly. Ted's also, I want to give Ted a lot of credit. He's been going around to try to speak at as many people, many opportunities as he can about the budget. He's been to some basketball games, hockey tomorrow, maybe? Yeah, hockey tomorrow, hockey games. He's available just to, if you want to come up and talk about the budget and just kind of get the details, he's right there for you. And he's been to, did he go to your Rotary, I think? Or he's been to some Rotaries?
I tried, yeah.
It didn't work out?
No, but you went to the other one.
Okay. So Ted and Kathy and Mary Beth also set up some community talking opportunities where we're going to go out to the community and to certain businesses to have an opportunity to talk to folks. And so I wanted to announce those just so people know when they are. On Thursday, there's one of them, and we're going to go to Luz Luna on Center Street on February 13th. That's this Thursday at 10 a.m. And you can just show up, you can get a cup of tea or whatever, and just be able to talk to us about how the budget is built this year. There's another one on Thursday, February 27th at 2 p.m. at Speakeasy Cafe, Center Street, Thursday, February 27th at 2 p.m. And then there's a Saturday option for folks who are free then, and that's at Proudy's Parlor on Merchants Row.
What's the date on that?
March 1st at 2 p.m. Saturday, March 1st, 2 p.m.
God, you're good.
You can always call us up too. I know Ted takes phone calls from time to time about the budget. He will give you a personal tutorial, and so that's part of what we want people to be able to make sure they understand what the budget's all about. And we want our voters to practice their civic duty and get out there and vote March 4th.
Bill, do you want to have Ted, as opposed to finance, have?
I think well, it might fit better with the finance thing, I think, with the finance committee, do you think, or how do you have?
Well, I just thought since you were talking budget
Oh, we
now.
can do it, yeah. Yeah, you want to come up for 2 seconds? This is a command performance.
Yeah.
Karen
You have your
had
slideshow laminated when you go to the game, so you can just kind of flip through it with people.
That's such a good idea. I think this man needs a slideshow to tell us the budget.
We bring a one-page flyer
I love it.
that a number of people in the administration contributed to, with an emphasis on keeping the messages short and simple as possible. And I think we accomplished that goal greatly. Focus on the most important thing about the fact that the budget allows us to maintain the scope of our educational programs and the excellence of their standards, with staffing levels that are basically comparable to what we have budgeted this year. And then we do mention something that's different and important, which is the expectation for the tax rate based on this fiscal 26 budget will be a 6-cent reduction from the current rate of $1.67 to $1.61, pending whatever the legislature decides in terms of the yield, which won't be known until May or June. But based on the current yield, that's the estimate's $1.61. Bill?
You know, Karen had a specific question, I think she's heard.
I had seen on Facebook, and I've heard other people talk about it, that our cost per pupil is over $30,000. And I just want to put that to bed, and they are just taking the total budget, I believe, and dividing it by the number of Rutland City students.
So,
and I know it's a very complex formula.
no, that's very, the way I characterize that is it's mathematically correct and totally irrelevant. And basically, that calculation, those observations were raised last year by a member of the City Board of Aldermen who wrote a letter to the editor, and so we're going to be, in fact, meeting with that member of the Board of Aldermen next week to try and share additional information. But the other thing I'd say, per Bill's point, is, I think we've gone to pretty reasonable efforts during our school board and our finance committee meetings to provide you with information showing things like the ballot language is following the statute required by the state. And yes, you can take our, last year, using the numbers that were used for those calculations, this gentleman took our total budget for fiscal 25 of $64 million, divided by students in the classroom, which is an internal survey we take of about 1825 at the time. And yes, you come up with that mathematical calculation of $35,000 per student. But what we've tried to help people understand is that is sort of the all-in total expenditures, including amounts that are subsidized or paid for by federal grants. And when you take out those federal grants, as we've talked about in this venue, you get down to something called not total expenditures, but educational spending that must be funded by the state of Vermont. And not surprisingly, it's that educational spending that determines the tax rate that must be raised from Vermont taxpayers. So, what we're going to try and clarify in the messaging is that, yeah, you can say that it's $35,000 per student. Again, that's mathematically correct, but it has absolutely no relation to the tax rate. And it's also not comparable with the numbers that we're going to put in the ballot article language, because we're required to put in the numbers that are stipulated by the legislature and the AOE. And those are based on the educational spending per pupil, based on different pupil metrics other than what we count as the students in the classroom, because, as you know, Act 127 passed in 2022 set up an update in new student metrics that give a significant benefit, a long overdue benefit, to Rutland City and other communities like ours, which are not as affluent as other areas of the state. As a matter of fact, what's really interesting is, just to show you how different all of these numbers are, the student average daily membership, which is one of half a dozen different definitions the AOE gives us, that metric is about 1,750. So a little bit less than the 1825 that I mentioned, because the counting is different. What's really interesting is, when then they apply these weights per Act 127, those weights add another 1,800 plus. They give us credit, basically, for equivalent students of more than 1,800. So that gets us to a student metric per the AOE that's used in the ballot language of more than 3,500 students. And that's based upon a calibration done by the AOE to try and give communities credit for, well, given the costs for the kinds of students that are in your community, we want to basically give you credit for more students and therefore more money and more, more availability of taxes. So it can be counterintuitive, and I understand why people say, oh, well, why are you saying $12,000, $200? It's really 3 times that amount. Well, just depends on what you're calculating, and as I've always encouraged board members and committee members to ask is, don't just assume that you understand what the metrics are. Ask questions about what's behind the definitions, because different metrics are used for very different purposes.
And to continue along Karen's line there, I wanted to just clarify that every single ballot uses the same denominator and numerator, right? Like it is, so
same metrics.
Ours is no different than any other ballot language from any other district around the state. So
That's correct.
it's based on educational spending, not the total budget, including federal grants, it's just that educational spending.
Per pupil.
Yep,
as the
per
pupils are
pupil.
defined by the AOE.
Right, which is that long-term weighted average daily membership.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so we are doing nothing different than what any other district is doing around the state. We are right doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting about that point, Mary Beth, is back during COVID, when some things were changing
Yeah.
and the finances were moving around for all the districts around the state actually gave a 1 or a 2 year waiver
Right.
to say this is the typical ballot budget language, and if you want to leave a few sentences out, like the percentage change year to year in per pupil spending, then you're entitled to leave that out. Rutland City, because of our focus on trying to be reasonable, prudent, consistent, we said, well, even though the state gives us that option to change the ballot language, we're not going to do it. We're going to provide the same information that we've always provided, and guess what? We're back to the future. You know, it's basically, we're back to that traditional language. So the unfortunate part was that some people, through their confusion or their misunderstanding, cast some aspersions around the intentions of all of this, which is silly. And, you know, we'll try and communicate that a little bit better and more clearly, but the number that, if you're a taxpayer in the city of Rutland, the number you want to know is, you know, what's my cost per pupil of education spending and hence my tax rate. And this year, that's a really good news story for us, as it is, in fact, for a number of other schools in Rutland County. A number of them are seeing a decrease in the tax rate. So, you know, that's a good thing. And that $1.61 that I mentioned a moment ago, that's getting closer back to the $1.57, $1.58 that we had several years ago. And, you know, so, of course, the closer we can get to that, the more we all like it. I really appreciate you flagging that. I mean, it's an understandable misunderstanding.
Oh, definitely. I just want to make sure to clarify it.
You know, I'm going to take the numbers that I have and I'm going to use them. And in this case, some people are taking 2 + 2 and getting 7.5.
I'd like to echo a little bit what Mary Beth is saying. I mean, we are doing what every other school district is doing, but one thing that I would like to think that we are doing a little bit differently is that we start the conversation early and we talk about it often. And we talk about it for a long time. So I feel like I'd like to, you know, I think that we do an exceptional amount of effort put into the budget discussion.
Well, thank you for saying that, and I also appreciate something you've mentioned at a previous meeting, Charlene, which was, for those who are interested, and for those who really want to know, there's more than enough resources out there, and they can go to the school finance page that we have on the district website with many links and information. So, honestly, there's no excuse for not knowing, in my opinion.
Now, Karen, does this come out of my time, or does that?
No, you can still have 5 minutes.
5.
This is the contingency that you always build into the budget because you know I talk for too long.
That's right. Thank you, Ted, very much.
Just to echo a little bit off what Charlene said, like, I've just been following another district who is just starting their community meetings on their budget. And I'm like, thinking, I'm like, we're like way, like, we start ours so early, and I'm like, oh, yeah. It's pretty interesting, like, what, some days I want to just sit there and be like, no, that's actually not accurate, but I'm like, I'm staying out of that district. But it's pretty interesting to look at other districts and the misconceptions that are out there.
And honestly, I think your point, Stephanie, if I may be allowed just to add another minute or two here, I think your point is especially important this year.
Oh, yeah.
Because with all of the angst that naturally surrounded the budgetary process, causing 30% of the districts to fail last year, you know, if you're a person who follows this once or twice per year, naturally you're going to come into the new budget cycle thinking, okay, well, boy, it was really bad last year, so I'm assuming it's going to be bad again this year. And so if you're not out in front of that communication, say, well, guess what? There's new information and things are looking a little differently, and in this case, it's better. Then you're not going to change that voter sentiment.
Right.
And if we don't change the voter sentiment, then that could be, you know, that could be an issue and a challenge, which we just assume we'd have to deal with. But if we have to, we will.
The key,
Yes,
sorry, I was going to say, the key to the long-term weighted average daily membership is that that's the actual cost of equitably educating our kids at our schools. And that's what's most important, is having equity for our kids.
Yeah.
And so, right, I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And look at us. we so rarely agree on everything, but look at this. We are all nodding our heads, and that's what's important here, is that our kids get taken care of. And so that's why we have 1,800 additional members, because our kids have needs that other kids, don't, other districts don't have.
And the other thing that I'll say that really reinforces your point, Mary Beth, which is important for people to understand, is these weights were not things that people just picked out of the air.
Right, yeah.
This was the subject of a very sophisticated and robust econometric analysis that was done by professors from UVM and Rutgers over a number of years. It was commissioned by the legislature, and they basically were charged with the idea of saying, hey, you know, the weights we've been using are probably out of date because they were 20 years old, and they probably don't reflect the costs today to educate students with different attributes and from different backgrounds. So this thing was done, it was statistically significant to the point where the legislature adopted, in large measure, most of their recommendations, which are intended, as you're suggesting, to more equitably allocate the resources. And this is the irony, is that it significantly restores benefits to our community that really we should have had over the last 2 decades.
Absolutely.
So this is overall a big benefit, and I hope it stays so.
Thank you, Ted.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry, Bill, he used up your 5 minutes.
You can stay for a second. My next topic will.
Oh, sure.
Might be, but just one more thing based on what Ted said. You just saw 2 presentations about all the different varieties of approaches that those 2 schools are taking to serve all the different varieties of needs that our kids have. So that's why we're weighted that way.
Yeah.
My last topic is just really briefly, you've heard in the news, I would expect that the AOE and the governor are proposing maybe a new approach to governance and governance structures in schools. I was just going to try to address that a little bit, just so you're up to date. And Ted or Bianca or Pam, they've been involved in it. Melissa's with the chamber thing, I think. She's been involved in it, but if there's anything else that I'm missing that you can jump in on. But what the AOE and the governor are really trying to do is, I think, 2 things. One is they're looking for greater efficiencies in governance and trying to see, are there ways that we can restructure ourselves to make education even more efficient than it is. And then they're also saying, how do we try to, when you talk about equity, how do we try to give all these opportunities for learning to all of our kids? Are there places in the state or in our region where they don't have orchestra or the different things that maybe we can offer because we're just bigger? So it's really efficiency and learning opportunities and what they're aiming for. And the proposal, I'll just give you the details. You can find it on Vermont Digger, or you can find it in the AOE website. Rutland Herald's had articles about it. I think the State House has different proposals that are out there that you can see those proposals as well. But the governor's proposal is looking like this, and it's probably evolved a little bit. Maybe I don't know if I have it exactly the way they're proposing it, but they're talking about having basically 5 districts in the state tied together by geography. So this area would be connected to, from Bennington on up to, I think, Brandon. I don't know if they're going all the way to Middlebury.
It would be your VSA Southwest Supervisory.
Southwest part of the state. They'd like to have a board for each one of these 5 districts. They would have, to allow for more community input, they would have a school advisory council for every school. So that wouldn't really be a board, but it would just be a way for the community to, give input to schools. Tech centers would be separate from this. They'd have their own system. So Stafford would not be a part of us anymore. The funding concept is different. They're talking about having a foundation funding formula, which that kind of means they're looking at what does a typical student cost to educate in a typical school based on research. And so they've done the research nationally, and they say it would cost about this much per student if you had this size school. They're without talking about any needs or any other specific things, but just the average costs, and they're talking about that would be the cost per student that schools would get. They said then they would make adjustments for different unique characteristics of a school, like if it's in a rural setting, maybe they'd allow for more money coming in because you might have a need for lower class sizes. where they would make adjustments for economically disadvantaged numbers, English learners, or, different things like that that would affect the needs of learning. They're saying that this would be considered over the next 2 years and be put in place for FY '28.
The funding formula might start in '27.
Okay. And then they're talking about having some degree of tax stabilization for this year to make sure that everything is stable. What they haven't really, I think, figured out yet, or they're at least taking into consideration, is how contracts would work with the different labor groups in schools. What kind of expectations for class sizes there would be. They're trying to measure that right now. And then what to do about building needs, construction needs, technology needs, how food service would work, transportation and co-curriculars. So that's kind of like the really nut, the shell of it.
So that would mean basically the city is losing more control over their.
In this structure, yeah, this board would eventually cease to exist, and there'd be a board that would cover the region, whatever the
Which
region is.
to me is saying less control for the citizens of Rutland over their own schools.
Yep.
Or any district, yeah.
Or any district.
If that's the way it goes.
Right.
So
I'm sure there'll be many different proposals.
yeah, there's a lot of different proposals already, and so like right now the AOE's got these groups that are they put together called sprint teams. They're looking at specific areas of the proposal. Pam is on one. Melissa's on another for CTE. They're trying to gather more input and flesh out some of the unanswered questions.
From what I've read, they're not very happy with it.
Yeah, well, there's been some opposition to it. I think in today's paper, in the Rutland Herald, the School Boards Association came out against it. And then there's some other alternative plans that are out there. There's one that says there should be one district, should be even less local control. There's another that says you could build districts around tech centers, so not 5 districts, but I don't know how many tech centers. There's
17, I think it was, yeah.
Wow.
Which might make more sense
Make
geographically.
more sense, right.
There's a little more control.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
So there's a lot of discussion going on about it, and I think regionally, there's been a discussion about trying to get together and just kind of gauge the temperature, I guess, right? And so I think Kathy's going to get invited to have a discussion with some other board chairs possibly. I think they want superintendents maybe there, so maybe I would go or Pam would go. And just kind of see where each of the districts in this area are at. So we would definitely, have the conversation anyway. But I don't know where it's going to go. It's a lot to do in a short amount of time. But I want to make sure everybody here is aware of it, and just make sure you're following the news. It seems like it's evolving every day almost. There's new things coming out on it. Did I miss anything, Pam or Bianca or Ted?
I have a question though, but it might be more for Pam. It's a superintendent question. But so when you were in Japan, you had talked to us about I know we're not going to call it the right thing, like the 3rd and 4th grade or 3rd and
3 and 4 year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Where is that at?
So it has not been talked about at all as legislative session.
Okay.
The focus has been completely on the governor.
Okay.
That's interesting.
There is, as the legislative session started, if we were going to be held to the way the legislation was written, which was that it would be implemented, I think, in FY '26, but there's not. There's a caveat in there that says that it was up to the committee to create an implementation plan, and without that implementation plan, there is no.
So it's on hold basically for the time being. Thank you.
I would just finish by saying, I think the goal overall is greater efficiency and more opportunities for all kids. And I think those are 2 good goals. So however it works through, hopefully that's what we're going to achieve. But I do think something will happen, but I don't know what it will be. So that's it.
Thank you. Moving on to the building committee report.
Okay.
Let's see, the building committee met on February 4th. We had a tiny meeting. Glenn Scott reviewed, it was a quick meeting, well, it wasn't, anyway. Reviewed contracted projects scheduled to take place during February break. One includes the Keefe Gym bleacher repairs. There's radon testing going to happen soon, which is mandated by the state, and we do it on schedule. Notifications will be sent out to parents and guardians before testing, and results will be sent once they're received. They're also upgrading RIS fire alarms. And the city is installing water meters in the schools in order to better assess city water usage. Basically, they're losing water somewhere, and there's lots of places in the city that don't even have meters. So they're just, it's not that they're going to start charging us for water. They just want to know how much water we're using so they can figure out where they're losing water. So it seems pretty logical. There's a couple more. There's an intercom project happening at RHS where they're updating speakers and making sure they have full coverage everywhere. At RIS, they are fixing a roof. Over time, rain and snow have caused cracks in the bricks and the marble. So that's a project that's going to be starting soon. Because if you let it go longer, then you'll have bigger damage and a bigger project. So we're going to get on top of that. Water testing. Second round of water testing is required by June 30th. So he gave us lots of examples and samples that I am not going to go over, but it is in your packet. Notification letters will be sent to parents and guardians prior to testing. This is testing for lead, by the way. So the letters will be sent to parents and guardians so they know that when the testing happens, and they will be receiving the results when they get them. He noted that the first round of testing found only one actionable item, a faucet in an inactive room at Stafford Technical Center. It's unlikely that in the unlikely event that lead is found, the district will follow state guidelines for remediation. So basically, they found lead in a faucet that wasn't being used. They replaced the faucet altogether, and it looks like they fixed the problem. So, he also discussed open RFPs that are out. Bids are due back by the end of February and will be in the March consent agenda. The next building meeting is scheduled for Glenn Scott's favorite day, April 1st, 2025. We will probably have it that day, but he is also having surgery, so that might change, but we will let you know. And that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Mary Beth. All right, thank you. The Finance and Strategic Planning Committee met on Tuesday, February 4th also after the Building Committee. We had three main topics, the fiscal 24 audit, the budget communications and community outreach, which we've already touched on, and the state's education transformation initiative. For the first topic, which was the audit, Tim Smith updated the committee on the audit of the district's fiscal year 24 financial statements. A clean or unmodified audit opinion is expected with no material findings. The report is certainly on track to be filed before the March 31st deadline, probably pretty far in advance of that from what I understand. So, Tim also described an upcoming accounting policy change, which has been endorsed by the district's public auditor. The change will increase the dollar threshold that is used to capitalize expenditures in the financial statements from $5,000 to $10,000. This change is consistent with generally accepted accounting principles, aka GAAP. Are you impressed, Ted? Yes, okay. Charlie, you impressed?
Yeah,
Impressed? I know. I took
Very.
accounting. Yeah, okay, good, okay.
Very good.
I know. It's scary. Okay. It will take effect on July 1st for the new fiscal year. It will have no impact on the fiscal 26 budget. Then we talked about, Tim advised the committee that the business office is considering moving to procurement cards, aka P cards. Such a program will streamline payments for thousands of low-dollar transactions each year. It will reduce costs, provide quicker turnaround, and improve controls. A recommendation will be presented for the committee's consideration in April. It'll require board approval before being implemented, and the business office anticipates starting this in the new fiscal year on July 1. Our second agenda topic was Ted describing the district's plans for budget communications and community outreach. Changes this year do include something Bill already mentioned, which is our 3 small group meetings, coffee and conversation, tea and talk, and something budget scoop.
Get the scoop.
The budget scoop.
Just the budget scoop, right. They're all related to the respective establishments that we're going to be at. So,
Well done.
I'm not creative. It was someone else who came up with it.
Glenn Scott came up with
Glenn,
it.
Glenn Scott.
That's good.
See, it was Glenn Scott, okay.
Our resident
Always
jokester.
Glenn Scott, okay. We're also we're replacing the trifold mailer, which we felt had gotten a little stale, with a less expensive postcard, which includes QR codes to key information. So that's a big change. And then, as Bill mentioned, Ted has been staffing information booths at our home sporting events. So, Ted also presented an analysis of voting patterns and results in recent years, from which he offered recommendations for really how to do that whole get out the vote thing and increase voter turnout and support for the fiscal 26 budget. He asked the committee for additional ideas. Our third topic, which of course was the Education Transformation Initiative, which Bill did just highlight, we did not get to because we ran out of time, and so we are going to talk about it at our next meeting as well, which will be also on April Fool's Day, April 1st, at 6 p.m. Just a reminder, we don't have committee meetings on town meeting day because it's a pretty busy day for everybody. So that's it. Thank you. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary Beth. Karen?
The policy committee met on January 21st, 2025. The meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. The agenda was approved by consensus. No members of the public offered any public comment. We reviewed several policies that have been sent to you for first reading. They include attendance, truancy, age of entrance, pupil proof of age, student placement, promotion, retention, and acceleration. Update on policy 6420, which are regarding leaves of absence. We are waiting for revisions suggested from the legal counsel. I'm sorry, they were returned to us, and so they have been sent to you for first reading. Policy number 6440, which is non-aligned employees, was sent to legal counsel for review. This will then be sent to Staff Relations Committee for review, followed by review of the policy committee. Update on policy 6450, which is workers' compensation. That has also been sent to legal for review. The next meeting is February 25th, 2025 at 5 p.m.
The day my baby turns 21.
And I have a motion, please, to move these policies to second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I'm going to go with Seward Carney on that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Each in the minute.
Do we have any unfinished business? Any new business? Okay. I entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of consideration of contract negotiations, the premature release of information regarding this subject which would place the board at a substantial disadvantage. Please include Bill Olson, Bianca McKeen, and Pam Reed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Is this
opposed?
regarding the teacher's contract?
And other things as well.